Tom Papa is a stand-up comedian who showcases his wit as a radio host, podcaster, actor, and author. You can check out his tour schedule podcast called Breaking Bread with Tom Papa, his daily SiriusXM show, What a Joke with Papa and Fortune, his most recent Netflix stand-up special, Tom Papa, What a Day, and any of his 3 books at tompapa.com. That includes his newest book, We're All in This Together, So Make Some Room, which comes out on June 6th. Tom, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Nice to see your face.
It's great to see your face, too. I had the pleasure of reading your new book over the last week or so, and I am also excited because even though we're recording this a couple weeks ahead of time, when it airs, it'll be a couple of days from you getting to perform at Joe Rogan's new comedy club, the Comedy Mothership. I've spoken with a number of different comedians at this point who have been a part of that club, and they say it truly is the perfect comedy club. So when you hear the term perfect comedy club, what does that mean to you?
Oh, man. It's a good question. That you have the comedian's interest at heart. I think that's probably what everybody's feeling because it was created by a stand-up comedian. So that there's going to be space for you to gather your thoughts, that there's going to be a comfortable backstage, that there's going to be easy access to the club, that the way the room is set up, the acoustics, like all of those elements from when you're on stage performing and when you're backstage figuring it all out and then having a good time, that they've thought about all of those elements. That's the secret to, because anytime I go to I don't play a lot of clubs anymore. It's a lot of stuff on the tour is all theaters. And there's just a handful of clubs that I will return to and want to return to. And this is because they always put the comedian first, and they've just been thoughtful about the whole thing. And there's only like 2 or 3 of them in the country. And it sounds from my friends that this is going to be another one added to the list.
What are some of those other clubs, out of curiosity?
Denver Comedy Works, Cobb's in San Francisco, Hilarities in Cleveland.
I've only been to Cobb's of those 3, but you're right. Cobb's is a special place to watch comedy.
Yeah. And Molly, who is the manager producer who runs it, it's just, they have to have a love of comedians and a love of the art form, and that comes through. There's other places that you go that it is technically a comedy club, but there's a manager who kind of just has the job. The owner's nowhere to be found, and you can feel it. You can feel like, where's my host? It's like going to someone's house and the people aren't home. You don't feel cared for.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard enough horror stories, or at least I have, as a nerd for the art form who has only gotten up a handful of times at open mics, and this was more than a decade ago. You hear enough comedians talk about just being treated like absolute crap, and maybe having to try and strong arm to get their money at the end of the night at certain places. To hear the flip side of that coin is nice to hear, even if it's maybe not at enough places right now.
Yeah. It's yeah, and then the smaller clubs like the Comedy Store and the Comedy Cellar and Gotham Comedy in New York, like those places. I remember like as starting as a comic and getting my first thing on the road and going to the club, and they're like, you can eat, we'll feed you, but only these items on the menu. I was like, wait a minute. Why does everybody get to eat this and I can only eat that? And you realize, I'm a trained animal here for the night.
Well, that's especially sad because it's not like comedy clubs are sparing some great expense for the food menu too.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't I have all of the fried crap in a basket?
So your new book, We're All in This Together, So Make Some Room, is to I guess put it simply, is an extension of what people are used to with your stand-up. It's you getting into more detail with some of these sometimes real, sometimes surreal ideas, and just having a lot of fun with it, while also making really poignant social commentary at times too. How much do you enjoy the book writing process, considering that this is your third book now?
I love it. I really do. I have a lot of comedian friends who wrote one book and swore they'll never do it again.
Hmm.
They just hated the process. But I really, really like it. I like sitting at the desk every day and exploring and going further, and then the rewriting of it. I just like the ritual of writing. I just love it. I like and it's also, as a stand-up comic, uh, you're always working in a certain way to distill it your ideas down to the smallest amount of words for the highest impact for the same result, for a laugh. And to sit and write these books, it's kind of opened that up. I'm able to write and expand rather than shrink. I still have the comic editor in me that does distill things down for sure. But as I'm writing it, I'm allowed to expand. I'm allowed to go in any direction. And I don't always have to play for a laugh, which is, it's given me it's been a nice freedom, after just playing the same tune all the time, to like play for other reasons it's really nice. So yeah, I love the process. I love being a writer.
You admit early in this book, I think it was chapter 1, that you were extremely self-aware as a kindergartner. That was when you realized that you weren't normal. And thankfully, I think it was your grandma who let you know that there was no such thing as normal. Quote, everybody's a mess. But this is also still something that you admit to wanting to be as an adult, normal. So what is the idea of normal for you at this juncture in your life, Tom?
Yeah, I guess we do. Excuse me. We do all crave being normal. And what that really means, I think, from the time you step into kindergarten and then for the rest of your life, is that you're accepted, that you're accepted by others, and that you're not ridiculed by others. One of the the reason people have a hard time with public speaking is that you're being judged by your peers right in real time. And people in studies say that that's a worse fear than death. And if you're normal and you blend in, you don't have that analysis. You're kind of protecting yourself. You just want to be, just leave me. My brain's already telling me I'm not normal. My brain's already telling me that I am a mess. I don't need you guys telling me that too. So what can I do to put you off the scent? That being said, the acknowledgement that there is no normal, you can play by the rules and do all that stuff, but that internally there really is no normal, that is very freeing. And when you kind of don't care about that anymore, I think for me, that was the time when I became like truly happy with my life, was not painstakingly trying to get everyone's approval and just be yourself. I mean, we have to tell ourselves that all the time. There's posters for it, and there's people on Instagram yelling at you to try and do it. And it's not an easy thing. But when you purely do not care, that is very, very freeing. Now that my kids are leaving, they're like getting older and moving on. And I've done that normal thing of raising children and getting them through school and off to college and all that kind of stuff. I am craving being really less normal. Like, I feel like, oh, I'm going to be back to living in the apartment I started in before I had children. And that, I don't know if I have it in me, but like, to be able to do whatever I want and drink whenever I want, or smoke whenever I want, or just make my own schedule and know that I'm not going to get a call to pick someone up at 7. I'm pretty excited for being a lot less normal in the near future.
Yeah, because the 18 plus years that you have kids, and I've got an 8 and 6-year-old right now, so I'm in the middle of my sentence, is a bit of imprisonment. Like, you don't get to be this free adult for that time. I guess if you're doing it right, you could be a complete deadbeat and not
Yeah.
skip a beat necessarily, but
No.
otherwise you are at the beck and call of those little humans who are so reliant on you to remain alive.
100%. And that was one key, is learning that it's not about you at all during those years. Like I always thought, well, I could still read the paper in the morning. I'm just gonna have to like feed someone first. And it's like, no, 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 you're not gonna read the paper for 17 years. It's all about them. That's a sweet spot though. 8 and 6 is prime time. That is what I mean. Yeah. Who cares about you? You've got these two miracles running around the house. And I would just record as much as you possibly can, because the memories of it don't really stick.
Yeah, I try to. I try to write a lot down too. And it's not just the special moments, but also those teachable moments. Like you have
Yeah.
a great story in this book, and I'm not going to have you rehash it here. I'm just going to encourage people to buy this book for so many reasons. But this story is one of my favorite, where you talk about number twoing yourself as a kid after jumping into a cold pool and nearly drowning. And it's, of course, funny in large part because you got to live to tell about it, but it also reminds us all about the rules that you have to abide by when you number two yourself. And I literally just had to tell my 6-year-old about these rules. I was at his martial arts class. In the middle of the class, he comes up to me and he tells me very quietly, Dad, I think I just pooped myself. So I go to the bathroom with him. Sure enough, he did. And so I have to explain to him the first two rules of number twoing yourself, Tom. The first rule, which you abide by both of these rules, as a matter of fact, in this story, is you have to get rid of whatever clothing was touched by your own excrement. It's gone. It's not salvageable. I don't care how many times you wash it. That clothing is done. It is an embarrassment.
Tainted.
It is a reminder. You need to be done with it. And the second rule is you can't talk about what just happened, except maybe to a parent who's helping you out, for a long, long time afterwards. How long did it take you to talk about the fact that you had number two'd yourself in the swimming pool so many years ago?
I think it might be this book. I think it might be. I think it
Right.
might be that story that I told in this book under an essay called "Don't Swim Alone." Yeah, it takes a long time. Those are good rules. Get rid of the evidence and then just lie through your teeth. Wait, did you just? No, I did not. I mean, that really is that really it's funny because I'll see comedians talk about it once in a while, and it's like these are grown-ups having this and they're telling the story about the time they number two themselves on the way into a concert or something, and the whole audience, everyone knows it, everyone can relate to it, but it really is what it's like. It literally is like a bomb going off in your butt.
Yeah, that's a good visual for it.
But
And
that's kind of the thrust of the book, is really that we're not the first people to go through all of this, and you can learn from everyone's mistakes. Everybody, even the people you don't like, you can learn. It's all been done before. So why try and like forge your own path? It's like, no, there's a manual out there. There is a brochure. This is people have gone through all of this stuff since the beginning of time. So just keep your eyes open and learn from other people, and maybe you won't number two yourself in your grandmother's pool, in your aunt's pool.
well, and I think this is the last chapter in the book, but you talk about regrets and how regrets can actually be a healthy thing. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite paragraphs in this book is the second to last paragraph, where you basically talk about the loophole in the regret contract as if you learn a necessary lesson from that moment to where you're not making that same mistake over and over again too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, 100%. I'm always surprised by people that, no, I don't live with regrets. I was like, really? You're perfect?
Yeah.
Or are you delusional? I mean, I have a whole bunch of regrets, and that's because it was bad behavior that I won't replicate. I won't, maybe I could have done better, and I didn't, and it's okay to feel bad about that. So I'm not going to make it in my next interaction with another human being.
Do you have a biggest regret? And if so, what was the lesson?
Oh man, biggest regret? I don't know. I mean, when I was younger, I was the same size I am right now. You know, I was a big kid, and at times I would bully other kids, like fifth grade into junior high. And I don't know where it came from. I have ideas of where it came from, but I would kind of bully other kids and stuff. And I learned quickly though, like seventh, eighth grade, it became very clear to me uh, that behavior was so wrong. It was just seeing like a kid looking at me like, what are you doing to me right now? Like it was like one of those, and I completely flipped. I completely flipped. And in the essay, it's like, do I regret like, beating kids up on the playground? Yeah, 100%. I do not like that I am the person that was responsible for that behavior. And I know we all have horrible behavior and you have yours. And yeah, why would I not regret that? Why would I not regret turning on innocent people for the pleasure of my other boorish friends? So it's not really just one act, but just being that person and I'm sure like looking back, it was very few years, but impactful enough for me to regret it and then completely flip and change by the time I was getting out of junior high.
So was the last fist fight you were in junior high school or before junior high school?
No, the last fist fight I was in high school.
Hmm.
But then I was bold, but then I was honorable. I was sticking up for a little kid at a high school party who this big guy was bullying. He was ripping apart this little guy. And just like a movie, I asked him to step outside in defense of this kid. And I stepped in and I had a fist fight out on the front lawn with this guy. And it couldn't have been more perfect. It was like he came at me and I hit him right under the jaw. And it was such a perfect shot that knocked him out and back. And he landed on his back and it was over. And it was like, this is like a made for TV movie. All the girls were like, I can't believe you did that. All the little guy was like, you're my best friend. And yeah, the feeling you get from that compared to the regret that you have from being that asshole that's picking on a kid, I mean, could not be further apart. But that was the last fight. I retired on top, kid.
Love to hear it. It's the George Costanza. Go out on a high note.
Yeah.
So within We're All in This Together, you lay out all the different things that can kill us. You give a warning to people who may not know better, all the different things that can kill us. It includes some of the obvious things like pirates, lawn darts, manholes, and even gluten. But jazz, Tom, how can jazz kill us?
Jazz can kill you, and I love jazz. I listen to a lot of jazz, but there are some times when I'll just, it's on Spotify playing through the speaker and I'm cooking or doing something, and somebody gets a hold of a note and just starts repeating it at a frantic, high tension rate. I believe if you don't turn that off at a certain point, your head will explode. And I say, look, it must be so great for the musician. He's doing it obviously for a reason. He thinks he's onto something, but his joy is definitely our suffering.
Well, and you also point out that the idea of dying from laughter has some realistic roots. I wonder if for like you, a comedian, a stand-up comedian who's obviously been making people laugh for a long time now, if you were to ever cause somebody to die from laughter, one, if that's not maybe the greatest feat for a comedian is to cause that to happen, but two, if it's like a boxer who gets into a fist fight out at a bar or something, and they can be charged for manslaughter because of what they do for a living, if you're not going to face some sort of criminal charges as a result of you causing somebody to die from laughter.
Right. Yeah. Someone did die during a corporate event that I did. And I was on stage, but I don't think it was from laughter. They were in the back of the room, and then all of a sudden there was like a hush, and something happened, and the person ended up dying. And I would be lying if I didn't say that there was a little part of me thinking like, I wonder what joke I was on. They said it had nothing to do with me, but maybe. Yeah, it is very weird when I'll sign my books at the end of shows and people will come up, and the people who are like enjoy the show the most are like, my stomach hurts from laughing, or my face hurts, or I peed myself. And it's always funny to me. Those are very odd compliments for your life's work.
Yeah, I don't want to be laughing at something so hard that I'm peeing myself.
Yeah, no, me too. But we're not girls either. A lot of
True.
times, if you're a mom, if you've had a baby, it kind of lowers the impact of my comedy, because so could jumping rope will make them pee themselves.
One of the more serious chapters in this book is you railing against people who lack senses of humor, who are trying really hard to suck the joys out of this world. And it leads to one of my favorite lines, quote, "You can't handle that a comedian made a joke that offends you. There's a list a mile long of stuff I don't like, but it doesn't bother me that it exists. I don't like Staten Island, but that doesn't mean it should be removed. It just means I don't have to get on a ferry and go there. Life isn't about how we feel. It's about what we do." And I love that last part there, Tom, because we're in a better place as a society with regards to acknowledging our feelings. But I feel like the pendulum is swinging too far in the other direction now, where people aren't just acknowledging their feelings, they are allowing their feelings to define them versus recognizing their feelings, realizing what it is that they need to do differently to change the outcome going forward, and then making those adjustments and moving on versus just remaining stuck in those feelings perpetually for days, months, and weeks on end.
100%. I'm talking a lot about that on the road right now. And it's great that we are not a part of a generation that ignores people that are struggling. I get that's great. That, and we're diagnosing people with disorders, and we're giving people access to help, and people can go and talk things through. But I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But I don't believe that we're here to constantly analyze our emotional state 24 hours a day. I'm pretty sure that's not our reason for being here. Our reason for being here is to help other people and create things and raise and assist your families, and all of that means being very busy. Stay busy. No one's feeling that great about themselves 24 hours a day, but the less busy you are, the more you have time to sit around and think about, why do I feel this way? There's no thinking, what do you feel this way when your country's under attack, or when you've got to deal with a sick person in your family. Just get at it. Just go. Just make, create, do things. We almost have this like paralysis going on with the younger generation of, no, but I don't feel right. But I don't feel. But who's to say what you're supposed to feel? It's not happiness. That's why I have a career. People aren't happy 24 hours a day. That's why you get to go to a comedy club or read a book and feel that for a second, because that's an unusual way to feel. So you've got to be comfortable with not feeling happy all the time. It is a weird moment. And it's also a weird moment in that people are taking the personal and saying, well, that thing that person said doesn't make me feel right. So rather than not engage with that, it's, how can I change the world to bend to my needs? What are you talking about? You're not the center of the world. I have a nephew that was talking about these kind of issues, and I said, he said, your generation doesn't get it. And I said, no, your generation doesn't get it. Your generation doesn't get the new changes, and it's all great. But what you don't get at its heart is that nobody cares about you. The world doesn't care about you and how you're doing today. That's the reality. And they're thrashing around trying to get the world to bend. It's an impossible task. The world doesn't care. And the sooner you find that out and realize it, you can go busy about your life and fight for injustices against injustices, of course. But you as a person, you don't like this one thing, so you think the whole world has to stop. And in terms of comedy, it's like, don't infiltrate our space. We're all here as grown-ups having a good time. Our free will to walk into this club, listen to ideas, laugh, explore, push, feel uncomfortable. That's our own choice. You don't get from the outside of comedy to come into our world and then try and change what we're doing. That's not your realm. You obviously don't want to be here. Don't come here. Simple. I know that's a lot.
A brilliant suggestion of yours to start to question the thoughts of the thought police, because I feel like if you were to probe deep enough, you would learn that a lot of those people lead pretty empty, loveless, laughless existences, and they're basically just trying to pull everybody else down to their level.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a very strange moment when, like, a lot of the analysis and reviews I've seen recently of comedian specials like Chris Rock or John Mulaney, they're not written by comedy people. They're written by culture people, culture reporters. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We didn't ask you guys to come over. We didn't. Chris's stuff is comedy. It doesn't fit in your cultural identity and all of that. Why you're not supposed, you go report on that. And it's embarrassing to read it because they have such a small understanding of what comedy is. It's like embarrassing to watch them try and write about a great stand-up comedian set, because it's like someone who never watched baseball before and now they're going to come in and give you an analysis of the playoffs. It's like, you obviously don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's creating feelings and all that kind of stuff, but you're not the one that should be on this beat.
You offer a pretty good explanation as to why we're headed in such a bizarre / bad direction. It has to do with losing grip on basic manners. I'm a big believer in the courtesy wave, Tom. My Twitter handle is actually at courtesy wave, but things like please, thank you, excuse me.
Oh,
those go a long ways in helping you to connect with your fellow human. But what has led to this increase in people not exhibiting these very basic courtesies to one another?
I just think they're not taught. They're just not taught any longer. A lot of the problems that we have are things are not taught. We saw them as archaic. We saw them as part of a stuffy generation. We see them as something that should be torn down because they're not perfect. It's a real problem that we have right now, in that we're seeing flaws in things and then ripping them all apart. And I get that. I get going after things, but then what are you left with? You're adrift. And it's basic learning civics, basic, even at the more basic level, just learning manners. Like that it's silly to teach people manners, and that seems like something like, oh, that our grandparents did that. We're just all gonna hang. That's stupid. We're crude beings. I don't look at manners as a way to say I'm better than you. I look at manners as a way to say I'm gonna navigate and have a nice moment with you, because I know how to say excuse me. I know how to treat you with respect. I know how to get out of this conversation. I know how to leave in the proper way by saying the right things that people have figured out through centuries. Just abide by those rules. So many times I say in the book, I'll be sitting on an airplane and I'll just feel this presence of this person looming over me. And they're just waiting for me to realize that they want to sit on the inside of that their seat is next to me. Just say, excuse me. Why are you sitting there like a cretin? Just say the words, excuse me. And then I'll stand up. Welcome. and then you get to sit down. And that's just because that person, I guarantee you, no parent told that person how to act. And it's a problem. It really is.
Not to turn this into a final 10 minutes of airport material, but I'm guessing the same person that has a hard time saying excuse me just to get by you in a row of seats is probably also the same person that doesn't see a big problem with going completely barefoot in an airplane either.
Oh, I thought you were going to say doesn't see a problem with playing their Instagram videos on speaker without any earbuds.
Same person.
There's a lot of bad behavior. They just started announcing that on the planes. You know, if you are listening to something, you have to use earphones, even if it's a child watching their show, because people are just so oblivious and they really don't get it. They literally don't. They literally haven't been taught courtesy for other people. Barefoot is really barefoot. I used to take pictures of people's feet on planes and send them to people just because I was in such shock. What do you were in your pajamas and now your feet are curling up in the magazine rack. What is happening? What is going on?
I like how you do also have fun with yourself and that you try to do more good than bad, but sometimes it's maybe as simple as you thinking about the good that you can do in this world. For instance, even though you've never actually served in this capacity before, why do you think you would be a great Special Olympics coach? Because I think I would be a horrible Special Olympics coach.
Oh, I think I would be great. I would be great. I just see, after raising children, and just knowing that how hard it is just to be a person getting through life, or as either as the parent or as the individual. It's all such a struggle. And that we found this place for these kids to go and have these moments of triumph. It's just so inspiring to me. I think it's one of the best organizations that we have. And I just would have fun with it. I don't see, I had people in my life that had troubles that they had to navigate, and I would see how the outside world would treat them. And so I knew at an early age, no, you treat them like you treat everybody else. It's just, we're all the same. This is their burden that they're carrying. All of that stuff would just make me a great Special Olympics coach. I would love it. If only I didn't have to go there on the weekends. And get up early and drive far and fill out forms. If only I didn't have to do all that part.
Paperwork is keeping you away from the Special Olympics.
Yeah. I'm not the best. I want to be. I think I could be.
One of the most touching chapters in this book, Tom, was the chapter on love, where you talk about not losing sight of little moments and seemingly outdated traditions, or the simple fact that true love often takes time. I'm wondering, was this written with your daughters in mind? I know you just mentioned that your youngest daughter is about to be out of the house. Is this written with the hope that maybe this sinks in further for them as a lesson I'm sure that you've talked with them about over the years?
A little bit.
Okay.
I'm a little hands off with them in that regard. Like, I always wanted them to feel like they dating and boys and all that stuff they could totally talk to me about. I never wanted it to be like, the shotgun father, I wanted them to feel like, no, I'm actually a good resource, a good person you can come and it's been nice. Like, they can come and they do talk about that stuff. Not all of it by any means. I'm not that naive. But it's really just watching them. In part, it's a little bit of them, but it's a lot of it is my nieces and nephews, and even younger comics that I hang with and see, like on Tinder, and watching them navigate through social media as a way for intimacy. And there was very much a feeling of like tearing down all of the old rules of dating. And again, these are lessons that we learned from other generations. And there's people put the brakes on things, and people give women the power in hetero relationships by, you have to ask them out, and you have to win over their respect, and you have to take your time, and all of these things are so valuable. And I get they may seem nerdy and out of date in some regard, but in another regard, slowing it down and learning from the lessons of other people that our parents and our grandparents and other people seem to have done successfully in dating and finding someone you truly love and a mate for the rest of time, that seems more satisfying ultimately. You're writing your love story. You have to keep track of that. If this all goes right, this is going to be the story you're going to share with your kids and your grandkids. Should that really be, I scrolled through Tinder and met this anonymous, I was going through Tinder and having anonymous sex with strangers and feeling void of emotional satisfaction, and then somehow stumbled upon your grandmother? Like, hey, no. Again, a lot of the corny old stuff, there's value in it. Not always, and not in every realm. But if you can pick and choose some of the moves, and I think that the slowing down of the dating process is one thing that those other generations kind of figured out, you know.
There is a lot of humor in this book, but there may be as much great life advice as you just exhibited there. But one of my favorite lines with regards to life advice is, a good way to live is to consider what they'll say when you're gone. What do you think they'll say about you when you're gone? What do you hope they'll
Oh,
say about you when you're gone?
um, I don't know. I mean, the only ones I really care about are my family, of what they're going to say, Um, and I just want them to, I'd want them to say, wow, I really miss him, because that would mean that I was good to be around. I was helpful. I was thoughtful. I was fun. I didn't make them feel less than, like for you really to say, like, for people who have left you, and moved on, the ones that you really miss, they did things right. There's other people that pass and you're like, yeah, I guess I miss them. Yeah, I would just want them to really, really miss me and get a really big statue of me somewhere.
A really big statue of you. Okay. Right outside the Special Olympics headquarters. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Or one of those big gravestones, like with a crow on it. I want people to be able to visit something. I don't like this idea of just, there's no funerals anymore, and you just incinerate someone, and then we'll just scatter them somewhere out by some baseball field or something. I'm like, no. Again, like, going back to the old traditions, I know it's not great ecologically, but a nice big tombstone with a crow on it and a funny line. You can come visit me just a couple times. That sounds good.
Love that. So there's a chapter in this book where you talk about failing repeatedly at attempting various diets. And you admit that's because you're a fat guy at heart and you're Italian. And this transitions beautifully into your love for Italian restaurants. I bring this up not to ask you another question, but to tell you my favorite style of cooking, Tom, is Italian food. And
Ooh.
because it's not a cuisine that's trying to outsmart you. It takes 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 ingredients, well-known ingredients oftentimes, and blends them together perfectly to make these outstanding meals. And I think of your comedy as a really good Italian meal. You're not trying to outsmart anybody. You're bringing seemingly simple, obvious things to the table sometimes, but you are presenting them so beautifully, you can't help but to walk away fully satisfied. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for the new book. We're all in this together, so make some room. And thank you so much for the time today, man.
Awesome. This was really, really great. And that is, I think, maybe the best compliment I've ever had for my stand-up. So thank you very much.
Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. And thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. We'll talk to you next time on Books on Pod.